So in terms of blockchain for humanitarian causes, there are two major use cases that I'd like to highlight that I've worked on for years. One of them is BitNation, and the other is my charity organization called Kids Compassion. So Kids Compassion is an organization that I founded during the Ebola crisis after seeing that the news kept reporting $1.6 billion was being sent to handle this crisis, but I saw no reports from the ground. I saw no one live in Sierra Leone or Liberia, and I just kept hearing numbers, but I didn't really hear a lot of other tangible information about impact. So I called a very good friend who's an extremely prominent rabbi, and we called Lima Bowie, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner from Liberia. And I said, Lima, what is actually going on? And she said, doctors are leaving the hospital because they can't get the $200 a month. A month they need to operate. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. We have to do something. So I took matters into my own hands, contacted people on the ground in Sierra Leone, and found out that people were dying not because of Ebola, but because they were holding supplies at borderlines. People were starving to death. They couldn't get access to clean water. And it's because the payment networks to process took 2 weeks. And in addition to that, it's a charity cause, and they can take up to 30% of the payment that's trying to get to these countries to help with the disaster. So I coordinated with some NGOs on the ground. I said, how much do you need? They said $40,000. So I raised the money, sent it there using Bitcoin in 5 minutes, and I ended up in Sierra Leone, just in Sierra Leone, having a 1,313 higher efficacy ranking in terms of number of lives saved than the entire CDC did throughout all of Africa with a budget of $1.6 billion. That is how inefficient our current systems are. So afterwards, I founded my own charity. It's Kids Compassion if you want to Google it, and I essentially adopted the orphans in the village who had lost their families to Ebola and provide them with a home and an education and teach them about important qualities that you don't learn in most schools, like character. So that's one huge use case of how I've used digital currency in particular for humanitarian crises. But BitNation in and of itself is a platform that we have created based on a universal system of human rights. A universal system of human rights that is shockingly not honored by most nation states. Most of you would be surprised to know that when I talk to a lot of governments about human rights and about blockchain, they don't care. Most governments do not care about human rights. They are businesses. They care about maximizing value for their shareholders, most of which are corporations. That's something everyone should be aware of. And so BitNation essentially makes government redundant. And we do this by using blockchain technology to allow anyone in the world to create their own government. Now this has massive human rights implications in areas like Uganda. One of my best friends in the world, her name is Kasha Jacqueline. She was on the cover of Time magazine. She's arguably the largest LGBT activist in the world. She's an LGBT activist in Uganda, where the Ugandan government tried to pass the Kill All of the Gays bill. And what BitNation allows people to do is if you're in Uganda and you want to get married, you can use the blockchain to execute a marriage contract in a way that is visible to you and your partner, but pseudo-anonymous to a government that would literally murder you for being in an LGBTQ union. Now, if you go to somewhere like Canada and you say, hey, I really need medical treatment, this is my partner, you own that contract and you can show that to the Canadian government. So if you go to an area that does honor your rights as a couple and as an individual, you are capable of releasing that contract to the appropriate parties for things like shared medical care, etc. The other application that BitNation has done specifically relative to human rights is our refugee project. So we give refugees, by the way, it is so shocking to me as well in terms of media